name I pray. Amen. So we're going to start with a little sing-along this morning. Everybody got their voices warmed up? Okay, I'm gonna start to sing, and I'm just going to invite you to join me when you catch on to the tune, okay? Don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Singing, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing gonna be alright. Rise up this morning, smile with the rising sun. 3 little birds pitched by my doorstep, singing sweet songs, melodies pure and true, saying, this is my message to you. Okay, everybody. Singing, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Singing, don't worry about a thing, 'cause every little thing is gonna be alright. Y'all did pretty good. Good, give yourself a hand. So this song, 3 Little Birds, was written and recorded by the reggae group Bob Marley and the Wailers. Although it's been recorded and covered by many other artists since it was first released in 1977 on the album Exodus. And compared to a lot of other of the songs on this album, which deal with spiritual themes of justice and liberation, 3 Little Birds, well, it might seem like a little flighty. But Bob Marley was often inspired by nature, and he used animals for metaphors for the human struggles that he experienced and that he saw all around him. And now we may think of reggae music as something really relaxing. You know, it embodies this laissez-faire lifestyle, but Bob Marley wrote about both the joys and the hardships of life. And his encouragement not to worry was not disconnected from the deep struggles that he experienced in his much too short life. Now, while we're singing along to this catchy, upbeat tune, it might transport us in our imagination to some beautiful white sand beach somewhere. We're lying on the beach in the sun and sipping a cool beverage and looking out at a clear blue sea, but our reality, right here, right now, is a bit more sobering. As we look at the world around us, from climate change to ongoing wars, the national election, the economy, threats to our democratic institutions, if you aren't worried, then you're probably not paying attention. Even our children feel this worry. Which is why it might seem odd, or perhaps out of touch, to hear these words from Jesus from his Sermon on the Mount telling us not to worry. Don't worry about your life. Just look at the birds and the lilies of the fields, as if that's going to give us any comfort. Do birds have to worry about gas prices? Do lilies require updated COVID boosters? Is Jesus just a beach bum, so blissfully unaware of what's happening in the real world that he can't be bothered to worry? I mean, the only part of Jesus' sermon that we know for certain rings true is the last line from our reading today. Stop worrying about tomorrow, because tomorrow will have worries of its own. Every day has its own trouble. And sure, we know that worrying doesn't really do us any good. As Jesus said, it's not going to add even an hour to our lives. But it's not as simple as just choosing not to be anxious. Someone once said that these words of Jesus are ones that could have only been spoken by a single guy living a carefree life on the beach in sunny Galilee. Because anyone else, any other person living in the day-to-day, people who are trying to work and earn enough money to pay bills or save for their kids' college or retirement. Of course, we worry about these things. But Jesus was not a carefree surf bum living off some trust fund. Jesus was a poor Jew living under a brutal Roman occupation, as were all of his disciples, and all of those folks that were gathered on that hillside that day who had come to hear Jesus preach. These were not rich people with a nice stock portfolio. These were people who lived with constant economic uncertainty. They were fishers and farmers and artisans and tradespeople. Their livelihoods, their security, their sense of stability was powerfully influenced by the economic system of their day. In Jesus' time, just as in ours, daily life was hard for most people, and they worried. They worried about whether there would be enough food to feed their families, if there would be clean water to drink, if they could water their plants and their livestock in the dry season. They worried if they would have clothes for the cold nights or for their growing children. And living under this level of economic uncertainty forced people to view the world through a lens of scarcity. There was never enough. And whatever they had, it could be gone tomorrow. It led them to hoard what they had, to steal or borrow or beg. It caused them to take on debt, everything they had that they worked incredibly hard for. And this experience of the world, it soon extended into their spiritual life as well. But the one thing that they could be sure of was taxes. Because Caesar took 90% of people's wages as a tribute to the empire. And in return, what the empire offered was security. The Pax Romana promised to keep them safe and secure so long as they stayed loyal and kept giving to the emperor. The economic and political system that they lived under was designed to keep them in debt, dependent on the benevolence of Rome. It was the emperor who provided for them. It was to Rome that they were expected to be grateful. Coming from the Latin word gratus, meaning pleasing or thankful, gratitude had a specific context in the ancient Roman world, where there was a social structure for gratitude. Benefactors were those who had wealth and access to resources, who would give to those who were poorer so that they would be in their debt. Charity in ancient Rome always moved downward, so that gratitude necessarily flowed upward. Those who were on the bottom of the pyramid were considered to be receivers, and those who were on the top were the givers. Like the scarcity mentality of this economic system, this system of gratitude as something that came from being in debt started also to shape their understanding of God, of those who were living in ancient Israel. It had worked its way into the temple system, whereby poor people had to exchange money at exorbitant rates in order to purchase animals to make offerings to pay their debt to God. And so this system of sacrificial offerings started to make people think of faith as a quid pro quo. Kind of like the empire. If I show God / the emperor / the temple system how grateful I am by paying my taxes, by making my sacrificial offerings on the high holidays, then God / the empire / the temple system will provide for me. But Jesus offers a radically different vision of God's economy. An economy that is first based on justice and faithfulness and abundance. Jesus reminds them and us that God is not like the emperor. That God's kingdom is radically different from the kingdoms of this world. God gives good gifts to all of God's people and offers them abundantly. In God's realm, there's more than enough for everyone. If you don't believe me, he says, just look around. Look at the birds of the air, or the lilies of the field, and see how God provides for them and their welfare and their well-being. And then Jesus offers an invitation to release their anxiety and put their trust in this God of abundance. Jesus invites us to replace our worries with something else, with a new way of viewing the world, to substitute our scarcity for God's abundance, to replace our worry with gratitude for the gifts that are all around us. And this gratitude to God is not a quid pro quo. God provides for us because that is what God does. God gives to us just as God gives to the birds of the fields and the flowers. And not so that we will feel indebted, but so that we will know that our God and this world that God made is full of gifts. And in response, God only asks that we not worry, that we not live in fear, but share what we have and freely give with each other so that everyone might participate in God's abundance. And that is how we can show our gratitude. You know, in the last 2 decades, gratitude has become a really hot topic among psychologists who've started to study how gratitude impacts our brains. And study after study shows that when we intentionally practice gratitude, by writing things that we are thankful for down in a journal at the end of the day, or by expressing gratitude to others, even by looking in the mirror in the morning and saying thank you for our lives. These acts of gratitude, they trigger in our brains the release of serotonin and dopamine, the chemicals that God designed us to have so that we might have a way of reducing our stress and anxiety. By focusing on gratitude as a daily practice, it can help us to release toxic emotions. It can help us to reduce physical pain, improve our sleep, and over time, we can literally retrain our brains not to be anxious, not to worry as much. It's almost as if we were designed to feel gratitude and to let that be a moving force in our life. And it's one thing for us to feel grateful, but Jesus actually calls us to do more than that. He invites us to live into a reality, a kingdom, a way of life that is centered in gratitude. And out of this awareness of the gifts that God has surrounded us with, we are invited to create community that offers God's abundance to all. In her book entitled Gratitude, The Transformative Power of Giving Thanks, the religious sociologist Diana Butler-Bass calls us to gratitude as a way of life. A way of life that can change not just our own hearts and minds, but the very structure of our society. When we can start to recognize that we are surrounded by gifts, that just being alive is in fact a blessing, we feel the need to respond. And it is out of this gratitude that we are moved to create community in which everyone can experience God's abundance. She writes, gratitude is not a psychological or political panacea, like a secular prosperity gospel, one that denies pain or overlooks injustice. Because being grateful does not fix anything. Pain, suffering, injustice, all these things are real. And they do not go away just because we are grateful. Gratitude, however, invalidates the false narratives that these things are the sum total of human existence, that despair has the last word. Gratitude gives us a new story. It opens our eyes to see that every life is, in unique and dignified ways, graced. The lives of the poor, the cast off, the sick, the jailed, the exiles, the abused, the forgotten, as well as those in more comfortable physical circumstances. Your life, my life. We all share in the ultimate gift, which is life itself, together, right now. This is our invitation this morning. To take the time to turn our attention to the abundance that surrounds us right now. This community, the love that is shared among us, this worship and the ways in which the music and the prayers and the presence of God comforts and emboldens us. Our place at the table, but the grace of the gifts of God that are freely given. We are invited into this place, into this community, to be filled with thankfulness until the worries and the anxiety of life can start to release their grip on us, and we can see that it is all a gift. And to extend those gifts beyond this place, out into the world, so that all might be able to share in God's abundance. May it be so.
Dumbarton is also very grateful, not in the Roman sense that Pastor Rachel just referred to, but for all of the gifts that you all have to offer. It's not all about money, it's not all about time, sometimes it's ideas and just being present. So I'd just like to take the time to acknowledge that we appreciate everyone's gifts, whatever you have to contribute. If you would like to make a financial contribution, we do have a QR code here in the bulletin that you can scan, and we also have donation boxes in the back. At this time, we are going to be singing the doxology, number 2243, only verse 3, and it is titled, "We All Are One in Mission."